Hello and welcome to PTV World. I am Jawad Tehami. You are watching Eid special show. This is a festive occasion, the Badi Eid or Eid-e-Isar or the Eid-e-Qurbani that we call. Muslims around the world are celebrating this particular Eid with religious zeal. Also to commemorate that supreme sacrifice by Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam. This particular day of Eid, the Badi Eid, gives us opportunity for so many things. Firstly, when we talk about the concept of sacrifice, it gives us that very opportunity to share with those people who've been through economic difficulties and hardships throughout the year, and this day gives an opportunity to share some part of our own belongings with them. Also, when we talk about the concept of sacrifice, how it is taken individually and collectively, as far as the teachings, and in the light of that very example that was set by Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam many years ago, what does that actually teach us? Where do we have to actually submit? Where do these all resources of this planet Earth actually belong to? That is exactly what the concept of sacrifice will try to delve deeper into, understanding the concept of sacrifice with our very beautiful guests who are joining us in the studio today to understand as how they take this particular concept of sacrifice. Also, this day brings in that festivity of togetherness. Togetherness when we talk about families now, since the things in the society have changed on multiple levels. Families are living at a distance. This particular festivity brings all people together from all those distances under one single roof, and brings also those friends together also who've been at distance. At some particular time, perhaps they were together in the school, they were together in the college, they were together in the universities. Now in the practical life, they are at a distance, but belong to particularly a similar area, and this particular occasion brings them together as well. So there is also the element of kids, what they are looking forward to in this particular gift. They get that very affinity and the affection with that very sacrificial animal on this particular Eid al-Zaha. When we talk about the Choti Eid, they are definitely looking for that Eid in the cash form most of the times, but how Eid is different for the kids this time around when we talk about this Eid of sacrifice. So let me quickly bring in our beautiful guest. We are honored to have been joined in the studio by Dr.Alizay Shafqat. She is consultant nutritionist, and she has an experience in ex-district nutrition officer Rawalpindi. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Alizay, for being with us on this festive occasion at PTV World. We really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we're honored to have been joined by Ms. Sunaina Pervez, Associate Client Success Manager. Sunaina, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on this show. We really appreciate that. Also, we are really honored and privileged to have been joined by our very own anchor. You get to watch her every day from Monday to Friday, early in the morning, with so much hard work she puts in. She's none other than Hajar Satti. Hajar, thank you very much for being with us on this particular show. Also, somebody I can actually talk at length about, but very briefly, a very shining, budding news anchor here at PTV World, Rafae Iqbal. Rafae, thank you very much for your time also.
Always lovely to be with you, Jawad.
So this is an opportunity. We are going to talk lots about other than news and current affairs stuff in this show. So let me begin with you, Dr. Alizay, consultant nutritionist. Of course, this is an occasion when we talk about people are into loads of eating meat in particular. Is it healthier to eat meat a lot?
Of course, it is very healthy to eat meat, but not a lot. So we just need to balance our diet on Eid. Eid is an occasion where people celebrate Muslims around the world. we just have to balance our diet, our protein portion, but it doesn't mean just people just don't need to be put out the weighing scales and counting their calories when the get-togethers are around the corners or at the family events. But we just need to be balance our diet in a moderation way.
Okay, so one needs to balance the diet, but when we talk about calories, it seems so scientific. Does it resonate with everybody at the grassroots level? How would a simple person understand about calories and adjust and balance the diet, especially when it comes to Eid?
When especially it comes to Eid, normally people don't need to be very scientific about it. Basically, diet have a very specific portion to a single individual, have different kind of calories they need. They specifically need to consult their diet plans for a specific nutritionist and consultants as well. But firstly, what they have to do, they just need to be cut down the portion of fats. Fats come from raita and you can say yogurt. We are using with our meat portion, and we are eating like grilled foods on Eid.
So cutting down the fat, especially when we talk about yogurt and raita, so that's quite a challenging task for most of the people, because most of the people want to dip that piece of meat into the yogurt and raita and then eat it. I'll come back to you. Let me bring in Sunaina also into the discussion now. Sunaina, when we talk about, I'll come to you, we'll talk about the deliciousness of this particular Eid also, the range of dishes that we can actually prepare and enjoy on this Badi Eid. When we talk about the concept of sacrifice, what understanding does it bring to you when specifically in the light of teachings of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son?
So as talking about the whole concept of Eid and sacrifice, it's not just the sacrifice that we do for the sake of animals. It's about the sacrifice that comes from our heart, because I mean the people we've been away from, and you know, a whole plethora of things that has been going on. So it all depends on that. We come together as one, as in unity. So that is something I think we have to comply, and we have to let go of all the hardships, you know, all the ignorance, and come together as one.
Right. Hajar, it seems challenging for me to be hosting you over here. You yourself such a refined host. Every day you put in a lot of hard work in order to host a show that brings in such a diverse range of topics. So in a way, it's an honor for me also to be hosting for you for this particular Eid show. So talking about the concept of sacrifice, when we talk about that very example that was set by Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam thousands of years before, that particular example that is commemorated with such a zeal even today. What do you understand of that?
Right, thank you so much. And obviously this is Eid al-Adha, and I really love the concept that Islam has incorporated in our lives. And it is just about generally that how Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, in his blind act of devotion, sacrificed. He was ready to sacrifice his own beloved son, which he gotten after so many years, and Allah has replaced that son with the animal in the remembrance of that great act of sacrifice. And I think the case of Hazrat Ibrahim is a very unique case, because he is the only prophet who Allah has bestowed this title that he is my friend, Khalilullah, right? And this is a very big and huge honor for Hazrat Ibrahim. But I do feel that somehow we have lost that spirit of Isar or Jazba in our modern societies, because we are so digitally connected but yet so physically disconnected from each other, right? So I do remember when we were growing up, we used to play a lot, and we used to know that what is happening, especially in our neighborhood. But now people generally, you know, don't even know that what is going on, even inside their houses, because they are very digitally connected but physically disconnected. But I hope and pray that this Eid we are harken back to our roots of the Jazba Isar, or the spirit of that devotion that Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam displayed, and we revert back to our prophetic tradition in that.
So Hajar, a very important point that you made regarding digitally connected and
physically disconnected.
It's beautiful put in that particular sort of an expression. Now I'll come to you, but we'll have to go to a very short, quick break. But I'll come back to you to understand this very concept a little in detail. Is it true, this premise that you've just put forth, is it true only for the urban areas, the most advanced areas that we get to see, larger, bigger cities, or is it also true for the rural areas? We'll also bring in Rafae Iqbal into the discussion, understand his concept, what he understands of sacrifice. But here's the time for a short, quick break. Welcome back to this special Eid show, and before going on the break, we were discussing with our beautiful guests that very concept of sacrifice. We are pleased to have been joined by some very beautiful guests in the show today. Dr.Alizay Shafqat, consultant nutritionist, and Ms. Sunaina Pervez, associate client success manager, our own very own anchor Hajar Satti, and also PTV World's rising budding star anchor Rafae Iqbal. So before going on the break, we were talking about the concept of sacrifice with Hajra. Now, Rafae, what's your understanding of this concept of sacrifice? So many thousands of years have passed now since this very example that was set by Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam at that particular time. What I actually feel is that that particular example that was set by, the lofty example, in fact, that is commemorated with such a zeal and enthusiasm even today. What's the spirit behind that?
Very rightly pointed out, Jawad. I think the essence of Eid al-Adha, as mentioned by Hajar earlier as well, is sacrifice and devotion in the way of God and love for God's people. And I think the main essence of the whole festivity is giving back to society, giving back to those in need, and creating an inclusive environment where everyone can feel that they can enjoy the festivity, where
that they belong. That they belong.
That they belong, and they're all apart and they're synchronized with each other, and it's a collective societal festivity. And of course, Muslims, they're spread out all over the world. They celebrate Eid al-Adha everywhere in the world. But with that, when there comes the talk of sacrifice, especially distributing the meat of the sacrifice, and when we talk about that, there's 3 portions to be distributed in: one for the family, one for the friends and family, one for the needy, and one for yourself. So I think giving back to the needy, it's very important and very crucial, considering that in these times there's high inflation rates as well, and there's a lot of people that cannot afford eating meat. There's a lot of families that are below the poverty line, and I think it adds very well to create an inclusive environment where everyone can feel that they can enjoy the festivity, because it is a meaty Eid and everyone is just focused on enjoying the meaty dishes. But I think it creates that atmosphere where everyone can enjoy equally.
Okay, so you just talked about the inflationary pressures right now. You're the only male participant in this particular show. So what has been your experience regarding the Bakra Mandis? Did you go to the goat markets? Did you actually check the animals yourself? What were the rates? What were the trends? How had been the purchasing power generally? What did you observe?
Yes, I did go with some of my family members. It's like an old tradition since our childhood that we go collectively. The cousins get together and they all go and they look for the sacrificial animals. And of course, they have to select them, the animals, for the whole family at large, because the young ones go, all the boys go, and they look for the animals, and it's everyone has their own preferences, what kind of an animal they're looking for. But yeah, considering the prices, they are high, and you have to negotiate a lot if you want to get a good animal in the price range that you want. But yes, there's going to be a lot of debating and a lot of negotiating in the cattle markets in this Eid.
Okay, I'll come in the descending order back to the same participants now. Hajra, you already talked about physically disconnected, digitally connected.
Yes.
Is this premise, does it hold that very significance only for the urban areas, the bigger, larger cities? where there is more of economic activity, more of technological advancement as compared to rural areas, or does it apply to the rural areas as well?
Right. So obviously, I cannot back it with a very solid research. What I'm saying is my point of view, but I generally feel that there's a diffusion of mobile technology even within the rural areas, so what we categorize as peripheries, right, or the fringes of Pakistan. So if you see the rising trend of TikTok, and it is usually utilized by a lot of people who are living in the rural areas, right? And one of the discourses that it is generating is that how TikTok is providing them a voice which was not provided to them before, especially on the broadcast media. But again, then connecting it to this trend and with the Eid, so generally we see that usually men are more they have more responsibilities on this Eid because they are going in the search of butchers, and butchers are usually the stars of this Eid because you hardly are able to find them. They're so busy in this Eid. This is their day, and when they are done with the sacrifice, and obviously then the distributing of the meat, and then further distributing it is the responsibility of the woman of the household. But generally you will see that
the business environment is friendly, such a lucrative thing to do for these 3 days particularly, such a good opportunity it provides. Perhaps some people also come into this profession just for 3 days as part-time.
I mean, it's also a sunnat, right, to do it yourself, right? So it fetches you a more sawab, or I don't know how to put it in English, but again, if you see,
there has to be the right way of doing it.
Yes,
but not everybody is expert
and not everybody has the guts to do it.
So
because
that's why exactly I brought in that very concept of the part-timers who just come into this profession just for the sake of these 3 days, and perhaps they can't handle the things appropriately.
Right, but I mean, yeah, it requires an effort, it requires a time, particularly when you are butchering it. But then again, generally, if you see the trend, and I see it in my household, and in my friend's household, and my cousin's household, is that they usually come and then they offer their Eid prayers, and then they sleep back because most of the time people are wake up late in the night, and then again. Then they, wake up at late, especially at the 2 or 3 p.m. in the noon, and generally then you will see that they are mostly on their mobile phones playing video games and doing all of that. So Eid calls for more meeting and greeting, and Islam has this particular element where it focuses a lot on the communitarian aspect of it, right? It's not just the individualistic aspect.
What I actually have observed since my childhood, it's I think more about meeting,
right,
I guess.
And meeting in both sense, right? The meet and then.
So okay, Sunaina, so when we talk about, let's compare a little about the festivity of Choti Eid and the Badi Eid. So that's all about the sweets, and particularly at the very start, right after the dawn, after the Fajr prayer, just before the start, the Eid prayer, people tend to eat that sweet. They start their day with eating the sweet on Choti Eid, right, Eid ul-Fitr. So what is generally the trend that you have observed, how people do start their day before going for Eid ki namaz on Badi Eid?
So specifically about the Choti Eid, it's all about the concept of, just always as we start with praising Allah and, just coming up with good deeds, like inside ourselves, and then popping it out to the people. And yeah, because obviously like the whole year, everyone is just waiting for, like they're just going on with their casual routine and just coming in for that specific Choti Eid. Well, it's all about the desserts and everything, so you get to lavish that. And yeah, but if we go through the concept of like Eid al-Adha, as talking about the sacrifices, it's not just about the sacrifice. The whole thing about which I've seen in my family is, and what I've learned is, it comes with reach, teach, and mobilize. So where it's like you're starting your day out with the good prayers, you're feeling all like fresh, and then once you go through the sacrifice thing, you have to go through like a whole set of things, whole set of skills. Being a woman, you have to manage a lot of things as well, but whole family comes together and they're being helpful. So I feel like it's beautiful, but again, talking about the social media and stuff, it contracts with that in a good manner, comes with it pros and cons. But what I believe is, coming to the whole part, we should just come together, and rather than focusing on the physical self, I think should have a spiritual connection that connects you with all of them.
So what's required for establishing that spiritual connection?
Well,
Going beyond those boundaries, or even those boundaries which are broken by the digital media, the kind of opportunities it provides to people in general, as Hajar mentioned, that we are digitally more connected and physically perhaps more distant.
you know, like I believe you have to go beyond the limitations. You have to go beyond all of the comfort zone that comes with it, because specifically the whole year you've been like doing all your things. You're busy in the specific routine. You gotta get on with the point where the people you haven't met, you haven't got to experience like that specific moments with them. You have to reach out to them directly. We can go to their place. You can just arrange a meeting over with them, and you know, just bring your heart out to that. That is something I prefer.
So don't you think this also provides an opportunity for those people who have not been on good terms with each other? Perhaps for one reason or the other, and it brings them that opportunity. Perhaps they need to introspect, perhaps to think over and revisit the approach towards each other and come to a certain point of consensus or something that you can call as more forthcoming with towards each other.
Yes, I totally agree with you on that point, because it's all about like forgiveness and forgetting. So obviously, like, it's not just about those specific 3 or 4 days we are gonna have that, you know, good like deeds in ourselves. It's about the opportunity that comes in with the whole things, where like, you know, we can assess ourselves, and you know, we can make a good path for us, for like physically and spiritually in the end as well. So I would say, just not just for that, we have to display out the things. It's about delivering the message to the people, and also like the needy ones, you go visit them. You know, it's about sharing and caring.
Right, Dr. Alizay, when we talk about forgetting and forgiveness, how do you associate that with the larger concept of sacrifice, sacrificing your ego or those things that you have kept in your hearts for some time, but this is an opportunity that you need to forget those things and forgive all those people you deem have wronged you?
I think this is very important question of yours, because it's an Eid to sacrifice our ego. It's not an Eid to just sacrifice the animals, but we have to sacrifice so many things on Eid. We have to celebrate this event with our loved ones, with our dear families, and I think this is the message to sacrifice egos, attitudes, and all those negativity. You just need to throw out and just celebrate in a very positive and good way.
Okay, Rafae, what do you say? Sacrificing your ego.
Yeah, I think, Jawad, that's...
Would you sacrifice your ego for some loved one or some closer one you've been not on good terms with lately?
Yeah, I think definitely it comes in the bigger prospect. When we think about sacrifice, we have to let the toxicities and negativities out of ourselves go as well, because that's how a person grows, and that's how we contribute to the society, how we build relations with one another, and how we give the message to one another that the human element, the other person, is more important than a person's own ego. And I think that's very important in these times when when the world has become so dynamic, when times are changing so fast. As Hajar mentioned as well, we're connected digitally, but physically we're unconnected. So I think in these times there should be specific and crucial focus on sacrificing one's ego and establishing relations with one another, good relations, positive relations, and encouraging and supporting one another, so the society can uplift itself and everyone can have a good self-esteem for themselves.
So with this particular forgetting and forgiveness and sacrificing your ego, there are two parallel concepts as far as the societal norms are concerned. Okay, so if you have sacrificed your own ego and you are being forthcoming with towards somebody and you're extending the hand of friendship first, perhaps some people or some quarters are going to take it as a sign of weakness. Is that true? Doesn't that concept also run in parallel to the other concepts? Perhaps the other quarter of the people are going to understand that you have done brilliantly well. That was exactly what you were required to do. But at the same time, there is a parallel concept which would consider the downside of what you have just done.
Well, Jawad, I think we cannot control how another person thinks about us, and we cannot control how the other person judges a situation. But I think when we talk about individuals, everyone can play their part in providing more positive and more progressive things and contributing to more progressive elements than worrying about what the other person thinks. And I think kindness should never be perceived as a weakness. It is a trait that takes a lot of bravery and courage for one to be kind, and a lot of humbleness. And I think it should always be appreciated and seen as a strength rather than be seen as weakness.
Okay, Hajar, we've had lots of philosophical talk regarding the concept of sacrifice for you and the kind of connectivity people have got in this particular digital age right now. Let's talk about your Eids. How your Eids, particularly the Badi Eids, the Eid of meat, was in your childhood,
Right.
and how do you celebrate your Eid nowadays?
Right, thank you so much for asking me, because usually Eids are very bittersweet moments, right? So my dadi used to be the center of the gravity, and we all used to gather at her house, and we used to celebrate together as a family. But she has passed away a few years ago, and that obviously center of attention has or gravity has changed, right? So it's usually my elder Taya who is now the center of the attention or the gravity of the entire family, and we gather at his place. But over the times, there are new members who are added to the family, my bhai, bhabis, and brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws, and obviously their kids, they have been added. But there's some elders of the family who are not with us anymore. So usually what we do is that after the Qurbani, so we go to the Qabristan or the graveyard, and we offer prayers for the departed soul, and then obviously we celebrate that. And there is this particular narration which also says that you need to do that on the Eid, because that is the moment when the deceased loved ones are also missing you, right? So they are present, but they are in the higher realm, they're not in this particular lower realm in that moment. But I think one thing that has been very stark, and I notice, is the rise of consumerism, right? So when we were as a children, when we used to celebrate that, I do remember that there was this tradition of Mehndi and Churiya, and one of the
That also
elder
comes under
Baji.
the ambit of consumerism. I mean,
What?
of course, you have to buy and purchase those things.
We
also.
have to. But what happened was that
That's a
used to happen-
separate thing, that they've got different symbolic significance, but they are also some products that you consume, that you
Yani
actually
what
pay
used
for.
to happen when I was a child, so we used to gather at a dadi's place, and usually one of the a badi baji or the elder cousin, she used to do that. But now I see that people flock to parlors for that, right? So there's this entire market out there who is doing
Everybody
that.
wants to be the best, no? They want to
Yes,
look the
yeah,
best.
I mean,
and
there
they want
are
to have
pros
the
and-
best application of all those.
Everyone wants to have the best, of course, and there's a race to grab that best, right? So it's not that the ancestors did not
Isn't
get the
that
best.
race very intrinsic to human nature?
No,
Perhaps
no,
it is
no.
more
It's
magnified nowadays.
It's the capitalism that has induced that. So when you are saying that it's very intrinsic to human nature, so maybe there's this one assertion that our ancestors, they did not enjoy the life to the best, to the fullest. Why? Because they did not have the luxuries that we are now enjoying, right? I totally disagree with this assertion. I think they were enjoying their life in their own right, and they had their happiness in their own right. And if you see how the mental illnesses are across the globe on the rise, right? Depression, anxiety. Why is that?
Perhaps
Because
we have-
materialistically
perhaps
we
we
are
have-
progressing.
perhaps
Spiritually we are still at very low, right?
Perhaps we have given newer names to newer diseases. They are being diagnosed so rapidly nowadays. Perhaps they were not diagnosed and not named or not given different terms back in the days.
Yani
But
they-
we'll have to,
Yeah.
very important and interesting discussion we are having. Unfortunately, I have to go towards a very short, quick break. And after that particular break, we'll resume the discussion from here. For that, stay tuned. Welcome back to the special Eid show, and before going on the break, we were having some interesting discussion with Hajra. Hajar, so let's move on to the next very interesting aspect that I want to understand. Now, when we talk about the youngsters, in your family, how do youngsters perceive Eid-e-Isar as compared to Eid ul-Fitr?
Yani, obviously, young people really, or I mean, my nephews and nieces, young kids prefer Choti Eid more because they are going to get their Eid, right? That's
The
why it's
cash
called
looks
Eid
good
al-Fitr. Yes,
always, no?
yes, and they're constantly asking for the cash again for the Badi Eid. But again, the concept.
But they don't stop short of asking for newer clothes.
Yes, I think everyone likes money. Who can say no to money,
Yeah.
right? So and
But
that,
at least they get new clothes.
yes.
At the same
Alhamdulillah,
time.
Alhamdulillah, we have been blessed, and I think there are lots of blessings of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala that we take for granted a lot, right? And one of this thing is that we are privileged enough that we have a good roof on our house, we have food 3 times. But I think what I wanted to say on this program is that the concept of Eid al-Adha, the concept of Eid al-Fitr is very interesting to me. And if you see how Allah has this concept incorporated within our society. So for with Eid al-Fitr, you will see that there is circulation of money going on, right? From the rich people, the money will go to the poor and who are unable to afford, who are underprivileged, who are marginalized. But yet on the Eid al-Adha, so you will find that there is circulation of protein and meat, and those people who are unable to afford the meat all the year because it's expensive, because they can't afford it, so they are able to get that too free of cost, right? So this is a beautiful concept, that how circulation of money, circulation of protein goes on, and how you're able to give and enjoy that very communitarian aspects that Islam indulges or inculcates in us, apart from the very individualistic aspects like salat, like prayers, like Saum, right? So this is the beauty that we enjoy. And one thing that I would really like to reiterate is that because of the Qurbani, because of the sacrifice, so there's a lot of blood and there's a lot of waste material, and I don't know how to better put it for the lack of better word. So make sure that just like you clean your house, just like you make sure that you don't litter around, make sure that your streets are also clean, because after that there's very what do you call it? It's
This is a very important point that you've just
Yes.
mentioned. We have seen the teams of the municipal committees, the district administrations.
Right.
They're on their toes all the time during these 3 days, and they're
Right.
trying to put in the best effort in order to keep the roads and the streets clean.
Right.
But it is at the same time the responsibility
it's
of the people
individual
themselves
responsibility
also.
too, right.
So to have that very sense of social responsibility and not to litter all these things
True.
out there in the street, so that the rest of the people are not feeling
Right.
uneasy about it. So, Sunaina, when we talk about the perception as far as children are concerned, of course, this time around on Eid al-Adha, they don't get that very cash, that Eid. On Eid al-Fitr, they get that one. So, how do youngsters in your family perceive Eid al-Adha different from Eid al-Fitr?
Well, obviously talking about a family like my niece and nephews, they have this like conclusion where even if they don't get the cash, but they know how to get their way, as long as they're getting the new clothes, that's it for them. And yep, obviously if you can't just cash it out to them, they would like ask for like, just getting the treats and everything. So, you just have to tackle them with that. But obviously, as long as they're getting to meet their cousins and their friends together, I think that's a whole story for them. But obviously, as us being kids, we would like enjoy that Eid al-Fitr, moment, having lots and lots of cash from like the grandparents, your parents and everything. So that is different from that. But obviously, as long as you're having that, togetherness, it counts it all.
Right. Dr. Alizay, the youngsters and the Badi Eid, how do they take it?
Youngsters and
The Eid al-Adha, the Badi Eid, how do they perceive it differently from Eid al-Fitr?
I think this is a very good break for everyone in this global world. People don't need to connect digitally. They have to meet their loved ones and celebrate it in a very well way. I think food connects you socially, so you have to eat very nutritious food and celebrate this event in a very good way. Yeah.
Okay, so Rafae, here's a very interesting question. I myself am not aware of it. When we talk about goat or bakra, or the meat of it is called meat, right? Mutton, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about cow meat, it is called
Beef.
beef. There is another category on Eid al-Adha that we get to see in some households. They go for sacrificing camels, right?
Yeah.
Also. So what would you call the meat of a camel?
Well, That's a very good question. I'd call it camel meat, but I don't know if there's a word for it, specific word for it, but it's an interesting question. I'll look into that as well.
I think you will have to go to the dictionary to confirm
Yeah,
that.
I
But
will
I
have
am
to.
very pretty hopeful
If there is
that
just a
Hajra,
word.
but Hajra would be aware of that word because
How, I mean, I don't really even know that, but I do know that the lexicons, you know, especially if you go to that Bakra market or the goat market of Donda and Chauka, and I don't know, you know, how you calculate the age of that particular animal through their teeth.
Yeah.
So I'm not that much aware of it. I think
Right.
maybe Rafae can shed some more light on that. But
we'll go back to Rafi because he goes to the Bakra market.
Yeah,
he has
well,
just confessed it short while
so,
ago.
so
no?
give us a good hacks, you know, of buying, I mean, a good goat, and how do you identify that?
Well, it's actually quite simple. What matters in and what's been
Most of the
stated in
people are
religion as
going
well is
for,
that
you know, preferring dondas, right? I think what I perceive is that it has got two big teeth as compared to the rest of the.
yeah. So what
teeth.
happens is when I think when the goat is around 2 years of age or between the age of 1 year to 2, it develops 2 teeth on the front, and as it gets older, it develops 4 teeth. And then as it gets more older, it develops 6 teeth. So because I'm a carnivore as well, and I'd consider myself more of a carnivore than an
So why do
omnivore.
people prefer dondas with two? The
Yeah,
goats
because
with
the
two?
meat is more tender, especially when you're doing the
Younger meat is-
barbecue. And I think when it comes to meat, what's the best part about it is that it should just dissolve in your mouth.
Okay.
It should be so tender and cooked so well that it should just dissolve in your mouth. And I can see your mouth watering as well, because we're definitely gonna want to just jump into those barbecues
He's transported
Yeah.
there.
and get into all that consuming meat. But I'd like to ask Dr. Alizay, because when it comes to Eid al-Adha, I consume a lot of meat, and I can feel that I have to chug some soda or something down to digest it. How could a person balance a good diet and, of course, consuming that much meat
So
as
is
well?
there
in your
is there
opinion?
any sort of a connection between consuming more meat and getting that soda afterwards, or with that and any with the rise in the cholesterol level?
I think ideally we don't need to prefer sodas as a nutrition. I would not prefer it.
You
But
don't
if
prefer
we-
sodas. Neither you prefer sodas nor you prefer yogurt and the raita. So how to make that mutton
But
or
I
beef
think
digested?
the people like Rafae, they can manage it like having a diet soda.
A diet
Right.
soda?
Yeah,
Okay.
sugar free.
A sugar-free soda. So you already mentioned that there's more of fat in yogurt and raita. So people love to dip those pieces of meat into that yogurt and raita and then have it, right? And then they take the sodas also. That's generally the trend. We have seen the fizzy drinks also being sold on such a higher scale during this particular Eid also. So what are those substances or things that can make the meat digestible easily? If there's if you're not actually advocating for raita, yogurt and sodas.
I think my point was previously I also highlighted that you need to keep yourself in a very moderating way. So we just need to eat meat in a very moderation
Like
way.
how much meat is a moderate meat? For example, for the lunchtime, how much meat is the moderate?
I think moderate
quantity of
meat,
meat.
according you can easily measure by according to your palm size.
Okay,
Uh,
that's much. The shorter the palm,
Yeah,
the lesser
exactly.
the meat you're gonna have.
Yeah, exactly.
That's gonna be
exactly.
unfair, isn't it?
That's gonna be not be unfair for your body because you are what you are eating.
Okay.
So you just keep calm to yourself and allow your
So
body.
the size of the body is going to be the yardstick at the end of the day in how much meat you can consume. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. People have a specific choices according to their basal rate and body mass index and according to their weight, age and height. So specifically we can't say it in an all along, all round, but people have a specific choices or according to their physical selves.
Dr.Alizay Shafqat, consultant nutritionist, thank you very much for being with us on this special Eid show. And Ms. Sunaina Pervez, Associate Client Success Manager, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on this very special show. Hajar Satti, thank you very much for your time also and for this interesting discussion. Rafae, you're going to stick around with us, but thank you for this part of the show. This brings us to the end of the first half of this Eid special show, and after a short break, we'll come back with the second part of that. Stay tuned.